This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
So last October, Cox Automotive closed a $4 billion acquisition for the dealer software company DealerTrack. And in explaining their decision, the president of Cox said that they have to stay on their toes because at the pace technology is changing, they're competing with everybody all the way from two guys in a garage. I'm Brandon Cavalier, the CEO of CarPayment Services, and together with my co-founder, we are those two guys in a garage. After school, I founded a used car dealership in what is known as the buy here, pay here industry. And this is part of the used car market where dealers personally finance the customers because the customers are unable to get financed elsewhere. And during my time as a dealer, I noticed that the normal way of doing business was extremely inefficient and costly. The only collection methods that these dealers offer is to have their customers call in, mail in, or actually drive in their payments. Then, as these loans become 6 to 9 months matured, these dealers can usually resell them to larger lenders. And right now, there's no efficient way to do that. It's all done through brokers, takes 2 to 3 months per batch, and could typically result in 20 to 40% of the proposed accounts just never getting purchased. So what our software does is allow the buy here, pay here customers to go online, pay for, and completely manage their accounts without ever contacting the dealer. Then, as these loans become 6 to 9 months matured and ready to resell, it allows the banks to go in and bid on and immediately purchase any account that a dealer offers for sale, removing the brokers and cutting the process down from 3 months to 3 days. We make our money when the customers go online to make their payments through processing fees and through a 2% broker fee for each loan that is resold. There's currently over 5 million buy here, pay here loans out there and over 20 billion in assets, all operating through antiquated business practices. And we estimate our market cap to be at about $30 million a year. So we're raising $150,000 seed round, 50 of which we already have committed. And we'd like for you guys to join us in the garage and help us fulfill the Cox Automotive prophecy. Thank you.
Brandon, so I have the advantage of having a buy here, pay here dealer as a client. But so I test for the audience. How many of you raise your hand if you are confident that you know what a buy here, pay here auto dealer is? So I think since this is so specific to that market, I think you should be much more clear about what a buy here, pay here dealer is. And the key here is these are people who go to a buy here, pay here auto dealer are paying 20 to 30% interest on their auto loans. These are really poor credit, right? They go there because they can't buy anywhere else. And I think that's an important element of your story because it deals with the inefficiency in payment in that market, right? These are, Hendrick doesn't need this, right? Honda Auto Finance doesn't need this because their client, if I have a car loan, I just set it up to auto pay out of my bank account, etc. Buy here, pay here dealers, they're dealing with people sometimes may not have a bank account, right? They're walking in with envelopes of cash. Right? There's huge inefficiency in that market, and I think that's really important for you to be able to articulate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the pain point that your customers have, and how distinct they are from other potential customers, and it addresses the question I had, the bigger question I had. You mentioned $30 million market cap. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that would be at about $10,000. 10,000 dealers, rough, and averaging about $250 a month per dealer through the reselling of the loans, through the merchant processing fees, and through convenience fees charged to the customers.
So that's the size of your market opportunity?
Yeah.
So what about the processing of payments? Is that included in there?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be a collective market cap for just the domestic buy here, pay here market. So internationally, of course.
So, okay, you said at the beginning of the presentation that you're pitching to investors.
Yes.
You didn't say anything about the investment of this, the investment part of this. Well, you described the problem, you described what you do, but you didn't say anything about the investment itself.
We're raising $150,000 seed round, and 50 of it's committed already, so just 100, the remaining 100.
And how much money do you think you're going to need as a company to raise as a company before you get to a point where you're profitable or break even?
To all of our projections, and our advisor board agrees, we think that the 150 would get us to profitability, and we would probably not raise follow-on capital.
So, in what revenue level is that, you think? So how much revenue are you generating per year when you get to that profitability point?
It would be at about $20,000 a month because our group of team would be pretty small. One developer, a couple customer service reps, and that at that point would be profitability. And
So it's a pretty small company at that point. So do you have about $200K in burn or in expenses?
yes.
That's when you're profitable.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of an exit do you think this is for an investor? How does an investor take their money out of this investment?
Well, there could be any of the lenders right now that purchase buy here, pay here loans, that bulk purchase lenders, could be interested in the software as they have the first rights to any software that gets offered for sale in our portal, which is extremely valuable. And then of course there are big conglomerates in the industry like Cox Automotive that owns Auto Trader, Kelley Blue Book, Manheim, and they would be potential quarters as well.
Why? Why do you think that they would want to buy that?
Well, I mean, it's hard to answer that question. I think it gives them a stronger hold on now the buy here, pay here industry, which right now they don't have any control on. So
But do they care, you think? I mean, it's a $30 million market, right?
It's debatable. You know, I'd hate to say yes.
I
so
think that's
strongly.
something that I would try to think about more. Think about, so you solve a problem that is there. There's a big inefficiency. It's it's a $30 million market. So you have to think about what kind of exit you're going to have, so you can convey to an investor a profitable investment proposition. You know, if you're raising 150K in total, you know, there's room for an exit that is profitable within that market. You know, you will be probably limited to angel investment, which is fine. But without a better story on the exit, I think any angel is gonna question, how do I get out of this? How do I get my money back, and when? The only thing that I can think of is you become profitable pretty quickly, and eventually you start to deploy dividends. But the question is whether an investor is going to want that.
Right.
Yeah, so I have the advantage of knowing a lot more about your industry than Lister does, right? And so I think his skepticism is absolutely valid. I'm a little more enthused about the underlying business opportunity just because I know the issue here is really inefficiency. There's inefficiency in the individual payment, and then there's an unbelievably inefficient market for the dealers to be able to sell these loans into the market, right? There's no transparent market, and I think one of the, so I'd focus on, you're bringing efficiency to inefficient markets, both with the individual payments and with ultimately the dealers being able to sell these loans back into the market. The value that he's generating is that he now is able to show the market. So let's say you're a potential purchaser of these loans. He has the payment history. He has all this sort of stuff that my client up in Kannapolis, who's collecting a lot of cash in envelopes, you know, he can't show you that sort of data. And my client in Kannapolis doesn't have, you know, you're proposing to build an online marketplace where there are multiple, you know, where he can see bids.
Yeah,
right?
But I can see that. I mean, I can see the transactional opportunity. What I don't understand is how you sell the business, how an investor extracts the value from that business. That's a little more unclear to me.
Part of how I would sell this if I were you, so you do have a market size problem, right? And I'm going to say market size problem in terms of other things we look at. But this is, buy here, pay here industry is not the only industry where people they're finance companies, right? These aren't car dealers, they're finance companies.
Yeah.
And they're selling something to generate a note. In this case, it's a car, but people do that with furniture and all sorts of things, right? And so if I were you pitching this, I would try and expand market size by saying, look, I can take this beyond buy here, pay here. There are other industries where
But that's going to be a difficult thing. I think that's going to be a difficult thing to tell an investor. And I think an investor is going to have to invest on the opportunity that you're selling today. And I think it would be a plus to say there are other markets, but I think it's going to be hard for somebody to say, I'm going to bet on that thing that is to
Yeah,
come.
sure, that has to be the icing on the cake,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
you have to,
That's not going to be what you invest on. That's just the icing on the cake.
yeah. Now, as an investor, you said something, so I'm gonna make sure I understand this. You're raising 150,000 in what form of instrument? Like you're selling me stock or what?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing a straight stock offering? Okay. So I thought everybody in the class was doing convertible note. Am I wrong on that?
No, they're individual raises.
Okay, got it. Good, and that's what you have to
Yeah.
do. So kind of a coaching point. If you were doing a note and then you said, oh, and by the way, I'm never gonna have to do another raise.
Right.
You know, obviously that's a problem because I have nothing to convert into, right?
Yeah.
So, good. I was
Yeah.
afraid you were gonna tell me it was a note.
No, that's what I assumed. There wasn't a note because that's the last round you have.
Right. No, and profitability is really projected for 6 months out. So I mean, worst case scenario, if projections go to plan, the investor would be paid back in full within 18 months. So at that point, they would just own a percentage of a profitable company. If there is a resale, an acquisition down the line, great. But that's almost impossible for me to predict.
Well, but so you need to paint the picture. You don't want to make me feel like you might just run this as what people call a lifestyle company, right? Because I don't want to, as an angel investor, I'm in this for the exit. So
Well, that's the question I've been asking. I've been
Yeah.
trying to get at. How does an investor get their money back?
yeah. So for example,
And I don't
don't
see
say
that.
something like, well, you're almost portraying this as a company that you could run profitably for 20 years, and maybe you can, but I would say never ever say that's on your radar,
Well,
right?
I don't know. Maybe that is fine for an angel investor. You just have to find the right angel investor.
Not for an institutional angel.
Well,
right.
an institutional is going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
Because the market is too small. You're not going to have an institutional investor able to invest in the business, but you can definitely find angels who will not mind at all getting a dividend over time. And I think you probably have room to do that within this market.
I wouldn't discount the idea of an acquisition. By
Yeah.
far, I would think that's the most likely outcome. But I'm just saying, worst case scenario would be just a straight.
Yeah.
dividend
The
play.
challenge with the acquisition, and this is perfectly fine too, is that investors are looking usually to sell strategic value, and that is what I'm talking about. I don't see necessarily strategic value being sold here. I can
Okay.
see completely multiples of revenue. I can see customer accounts being sold. When you get to $2, $3, $10 million in revenue, when you own a third of the market, then there's a multiple to be had there. You will grow naturally, but you're going to grow at the multiple that is industry standard.
Right.
And what investors typically look for is an upside over that, a strategic price that some acquirer can
I
pay
understand.
on top of that.
Any of the lenders that are in this space, and there's big ones like Westlake and Cardinal and
Yeah.
even Drive Time, they would have a strategic play to own our software because any loan that came through the software, they would have first bid. They would have the ability to buy before any other lender got an offer on it. So that would be a big play if there's billions of dollars getting resold. They would be able to buy all those loans before any other lender would have the ability to do that.
Yes, but if the market, if there are billions of dollars at stake, but the market is only $30 million in your side, there's not a whole lot of strategic potential that you're going to be able to bring to somebody. So I think I would not be afraid to sell this as a lifestyle business and think about offering, not necessarily a strategic value, but a dividend to an investor. Look for the right investor. I think if you don't find the right investor, you're going to waste your time. And finding the right investor can save you a ton of wasted effort. And I think in this case, you have the opportunity to do that. You're not talking about a huge raise.
All right.
We got time for one question real quick. Yes, over there.
I like what you're doing from the dealer's perspective, and I can see the value in it and getting out and collecting money from car buyers. But how does it work from the car buyer's perspective? Say you're somebody with bad credit, you have $200 or $300 in your pocket, you may or may not have a smartphone. How do you convert that cash in your pocket into this software in a way that's easier than just running down to the car lot and paying?
So online, the online portal itself will be obviously for customers that do have a bank account and do have a credit card. The majority of the customers do, but there is a substantially large amount, like roughly 30% of these customers, 30 to 40%, do just have cash. And to address those customers, we are trying to get set up with Walmart's Bill Pay, Western Union's Bill Pay, and Pay Near Me. So at all 7-Elevens, Walgreens, Walmarts, and any of these bill paying services, these customers can bring their CarPayment Services account number to any of those desks with their cash and make their payments that way. So that would accommodate for those cash customers.
Thank you, Brandon.